The wind blew softly across the wide fields of the ranch, carrying with it the smell of dry earth and the faint scent of wildflowers. The ranch was large, stretching farther than the eye could see, with rolling hills and patches of tall grass that swayed like waves in the gentle breeze. The sun had just begun to set, casting a golden glow over the land, and the sky was painted with streaks of pink and orange. It was a quiet, peaceful evening, the kind of evening that made the rancher, a tall man with broad shoulders and weathered hands, feel at home. He had lived on this land for most of his life, working it, protecting it, and finding comfort in its solitude. He was alone in the main house, sitting by the window with a cup of hot coffee in his hands. The house was old but sturdy, built of wood that had aged beautifully, giving it character and a sense of history. The rancher liked the quiet moments, the ones where he could watch the sun disappear behind the hills and listen to the sounds of nature. That evening, however, there was an unusual tension in the air, something subtle but unsettling. He felt it in the way the wind had a sharper edge, in the sudden stillness of the animals outside, and in the faint rustling of something moving near the edge of the property. As he looked out across the fields, he noticed a figure in the distance. At first, he thought it might be one of the ranch hands, but as the figure came closer, he realized it was a woman. She moved with haste, but also with caution, as if she were trying not to be noticed. Her clothes were simple but slightly worn, and she carried something close to her chest. She looked tired, worried, and frightened. The rancher felt a mix of curiosity and concern. Visitors were rare, especially at this hour and on this part of the property. She approached the main gate slowly, glancing around nervously. The rancher stepped outside, his boots crunching on the gravel path, and called out, "Hey there! Are you lost?" His voice was calm but firm, carrying a natural authority that came from years of working alone and handling whatever life brought his way. The woman froze, her eyes wide, and for a moment she did not answer. She seemed to weigh her options, her hands gripping whatever she was holding a little tighter. Finally, in a voice that trembled, she said, "Please, don't take it off." The words were barely above a whisper, but they carried a weight of fear and urgency. The rancher frowned, confused. "Take what off?" he asked gently, stepping closer but keeping his distance. He could see her face more clearly now. Her eyes were full of worry, and there was a tremble in her hands that made him realize she was truly scared. The woman shook her head, almost as if she could not bear to explain. I can't. You don't understand," she said, her voice quivering. She held the object closer, as if it were a shield against the world. The rancher noticed her hesitation, her fear, and he felt a pull of empathy. He had always helped people in need, even if it meant stepping into unknown territory. Yet, he also knew he had to be careful. Something about her was unusual, and the fear in her eyes suggested that whatever she was hiding was important, maybe even dangerous. "Look," he said calmly, trying to reassure her. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe here. Just tell me what's going on. Maybe I can help." His voice was steady, but inside, his curiosity was growing. He had faced many challenges on this ranch, storms, wild animals, even thieves, but nothing quite like this. There was a story behind her fear, and he wanted to know it, but he also understood that trust could not be forced. The woman hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to appear from the shadows. I can't let anyone see it," she said finally. "Not anyone. You have to promise you won't." She trailed off, her fear making her words falter. The rancher nodded slowly. "I promise. Nobody's going to take it from you. Just show me so I can understand." For a long moment, she seemed to struggle with the decision. Her eyes searched his face, looking for any hint of deception or danger. Finally, she sighed. a sound filled with both relief and continued fear. She moved a small step closer, holding the object in front of her like it was the most precious thing in the world. The rancher's eyes narrowed slightly, trying to make sense of what she was protecting so fiercely. The evening grew darker, and the first stars began to appear in the sky. The rancher gestured for her to come inside the house, to warm up and sit down. "You need to be safe," he said. "We can talk inside where it's warm, and you don't have to worry about anyone seeing you." She nodded slowly, still clutching the object tightly, and followed him. Her movements were careful, almost cautious, as if each step carried the weight of her fear. Inside the house, the warm light of the fireplace illuminated the room. The woman set herself on a chair near the fire, still holding the object close. The rancher poured her a cup of tea, hoping the warmth would help calm her nerves. "Take your time," he said softly. "You don't have to tell me everything at once, just start when you're ready." She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear, confusion, and gratitude. It's something I can't lose," she whispered. "If it's taken away, I don't know what will happen." Her voice shook, and she pressed the object closer to her chest. The rancher studied her, trying to understand her urgency. He could see that she wasn't lying. Whatever she was protecting, it mattered deeply to her. The rancher took a slow breath. He had faced many situations where people came to him needing help, but this was different. There was a mystery here, and the stakes were high, even if he didn't fully understand them yet. He wanted to reassure her, to show her that she was safe, but he also knew he had to be careful. One wrong move, one wrong word, and her trust could be lost forever. The night grew quieter, and the wind outside seemed to pause as if holding its breath. The rancher and the woman sat across from each other, the tension in the room thick, but not unbearable. Each of them was waiting for the other to speak, for the first step toward trust. And though the object she protected remained a secret for now, the bond between them began to form, built on understanding, patience, and the unspoken promise of safety. As the fire crackled and the shadows danced along the walls, the rancher realized that this night would change everything. It was no longer just another evening on the ranch. Something extraordinary had begun, something that would challenge him, test his instincts, and force him to confront a mystery he could never have imagined. And for the woman, this night marked the beginning of a fragile hope. The first moment in a long time when she could imagine being safe, if only for a little while, with someone who seemed willing to understand her fear and protect what mattered most. The wind whispered outside, carrying the promise of challenges and revelations yet to come. And inside, the rancher and the woman sat quietly, two strangers brought together by circumstance, by fear, and by a secret that could change both of their lives forever. The story had only just begun. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the ranch, spilling soft light across the hills and turning the dew on the grass into tiny, sparkling jewels. The rancher woke early, as he always did, and moved through the familiar routine of feeding the animals and checking fences. But today, his thoughts kept drifting back to the woman in his living room. He could not shake the image of her worried eyes, or the way she had clutched the object so tightly, as if the world depended on her holding it close. Something about her fear had touched him, and he knew he needed to understand more, even if she was reluctant to explain. By mid-morning, the woman had not yet spoken about the object, and the rancher realized she needed more time. He gave her space, but tried to make her feel comfortable. He showed her around the house, introduced her to the small garden behind it, and offered her simple meals. She ate quietly, her eyes sometimes flicking nervously toward the door and windows, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. The rancher noticed these small gestures and understood that her fear was not something she could simply set aside. It was part of her life, and it would take patience to help her feel safe. He tried to make conversation, speaking about the ranch, the animals, and the quiet life he led here. Slowly, she began to respond, though her answers were brief and cautious. She asked questions, too, about the rancher's life, the animals, and even the stars that appeared in the evening sky. These small interactions helped to build a fragile trust. He noticed that each question she asked was a little window into her world, a way for her to take control in an environment where she clearly felt vulnerable. As the day passed, the rancher began to sense that there was more to her story than she was willing to share. He could see it in her eyes, the way they sometimes grew distant, as if she were remembering something painful. There were moments when her hands shook slightly, or she would glance over her shoulder even when no one was there. He understood that whatever she was hiding was deeply personal, and it was not just a possession she feared losing, but perhaps a part of herself or her past. In the afternoon, the rancher decided to take her outside, thinking that fresh air and sunlight might help ease her tension. He led her to the small stream that ran along the edge of the property, where the water gurgled over smooth stones and birds flitted among the trees. The woman walked slowly, keeping the object pressed close to her chest. But she seemed to relax a little with the sound of the stream and the warmth of the sun. He watched her carefully, waiting for a sign that she might be ready to speak, but she remained silent, lost in her own thoughts. Finally, he sat down on a large rock near the stream and invited her to sit beside him. "You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready for," he said gently. "But I want you to know that I'm not going to leave you alone out here, and I'm not going to let anyone hurt you." She looked at him then, her eyes searching his face for honesty. Slowly she nodded, but she still did not speak. Instead, she let out a shaky breath, as if releasing a small part of her fear without words. The rancher realized that trust would not come quickly, and he needed to be patient. He decided to share a little about himself, hoping it would make her feel less alone. He told her stories about the ranch, about storms that had come and gone, animals he had rescued, and moments of quiet triumph when he had fixed a broken fence or saved a lost calf. His voice was calm and steady, and slowly the woman began to respond, her words small but more confident. She told him a little about her journey to the ranch, though she avoided mentioning the object or the danger she feared. As the day grew longer, the sky began to cloud over, hinting at rain. The rancher led her back to the house before the storm could reach them. Inside, he prepared a warm meal and invited her to eat at the table. She hesitated but eventually sat down, and for a moment it felt as if the house were just two people sharing a simple meal, free from fear. The rancher noticed how her posture changed slightly as she relaxed, and he realized that the small comforts of the ranch, food, warmth, and safety, were helping her regain some sense of security. After the meal, the woman finally spoke more openly, though carefully. She spoke about her travels, the people she had met, and the challenges she had faced. She described moments of kindness, but also moments of fear, though she avoided explaining the true danger she carried with her. The rancher listened patiently, offering small words of encouragement, never pressing too hard. He understood that trust was delicate, and pushing too much could make her retreat further into silence. As evening approached, the storm began to break, and rain tapped gently against the windows. The rancher suggested they sit by the fire, and she agreed, finally allowing herself to relax more completely. The firelight danced across her face, revealing both her youth and the weariness of someone who had carried heavy burdens for far too long. She glanced at the object she had been holding all day and then at the rancher, as if considering whether she could begin to explain its importance. He waited silently, giving her the space to choose when she felt ready. Eventually, she spoke in a soft, trembling voice. "I've had to hide this for a long time," she said. "Not everyone would understand. And some people..." Some people would take it from me if they could. It's the only thing that keeps me safe, in a way." She pressed it closer to her chest, her hands trembling. The rancher nodded, understanding the depth of her fear without needing to see the object itself. He knew that safety and trust were fragile, and that what she held was more than just a thing. It was a part of her life, perhaps even a part of her identity. The rancher took a slow breath and said gently, "You don't have to show me if you're not ready. But I want you to know that whatever it is, I will protect it. And I will protect you." The woman's eyes filled with tears, though she did not speak. She simply nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly as she felt a sense of relief for the first time in days, or perhaps weeks. The bond between them deepened, built on mutual understanding and the quiet promise of protection. That night, as the rain fell softly outside and the wind whispered through the trees, the rancher and the woman sat by the fire, the room filled with a comforting warmth. They did not speak much, but the silence was not empty. It was filled with trust and the beginning of understanding. Each of them knew that challenges lay ahead, that the object she carried would demand attention and care, and that danger might still be near. But for now, they were together, and that offered a measure of safety and hope. The rancher could not help but feel a sense of anticipation. Something about this woman and the secret she carried was extraordinary. He did not yet understand the full story, but he knew that this encounter was not random. The universe had brought her to his ranch for a reason, and he felt a responsibility to help her, no matter the cost. He also realized that in helping her, he might discover something about himself, about courage, and about the kind of life he wanted to lead in the future. As the night deepened and the fire's glow softened, the woman finally allowed herself to rest, holding the object close but no longer trembling as she had before. The rancher kept watch, his mind alert, thinking about what the next day might bring. He knew that trust had begun to grow, but the real challenge, understanding the full significance of what she carried, was still ahead. And yet, for the first time, he felt that they might face it together. Outside, the storm passed, leaving the night calm and the air fresh and clean. The rancher looked out the window at the darkened fields, thinking about the unknown dangers and the mysteries that awaited them. But he also felt a quiet hope. Sometimes the arrival of a stranger could change everything, and he had a feeling that this woman and her secret would change his life in ways he could not yet imagine. For now, they sat together by the fire, two strangers bound by circumstance, fear, and a fragile trust, ready to face whatever came next with patience, courage, and a shared sense of purpose. The next morning, the ranch was quiet again, but there was a different kind of energy in the air. The sun rose slowly over the hills, and the light spilled across the fields, casting long shadows behind the fences and trees. The rancher woke early, as he always did, and moved through his usual routine of feeding the animals and checking the fences. Yet, despite the familiar tasks, his thoughts were elsewhere. He kept thinking about the woman, about the object she had carried so closely, and about the fear he had seen in her eyes. There was a story there, he was sure of it, a story that had yet to be told. The woman, meanwhile, stayed in the house for most of the morning, seemingly lost in her own thoughts. She sat by the window, watching the sunlight play on the fields, her hands folded tightly around the object she still carried. The rancher noticed how tense she was, how every small sound outside made her glance toward the door or the horizon. He understood that trust did not come quickly, especially for someone who had clearly experienced fear or danger before. He decided to give her time, but also knew that patience alone would not be enough. There had to be a moment when she felt safe enough to speak. By mid-morning, he tried again, approaching her gently with a question that was not too direct. "Would you like to see the barn?" he asked. "It's quiet this time of day, and you might find it interesting. We have some animals there that like visitors." She hesitated, but the way he said it, without pressure or expectation, made her nod slowly. She followed him outside, still clutching the object, but with a little more calm in her step. The sun warmed her face, and the breeze seemed to soothe some of her nerves. As they walked together, the rancher spoke about the animals they passed. The horses grazing in the field, the cows resting in the shade, and even the old barn cat that prowled along the fence. His voice was steady, calm, and reassuring. He wanted her to see that the world here was predictable in its own way, that danger was not lurking at every turn, at least not on his land. Slowly, she began to relax, allowing herself to take in the details of the ranch rather than focusing only on fear. Inside the barn, the air smelled of hay and earth. The rancher led her to a stall where a young foal was curiously watching them. The woman's eyes softened for the first time in days, and she allowed herself a small smile as the foal approached, sniffing her hand. She patted it lightly, her movements careful but gentle. The rancher watched her closely, noticing the change in her demeanor. It was a small moment, but it was significant. It showed that she was beginning to trust, even if just a little. After spending time in the barn, they walked back to the house. The clouds had gathered now, signaling the approach of a storm. The rancher suggested they go inside, and she agreed, sensing the shift in the weather. Once inside, he prepared a simple meal, and they ate in relative silence, though there was a warmth in the room that had not been there before. The woman glanced at him occasionally, her curiosity mixed with caution. It was clear she was still wary, but the tension had eased slightly. Later, as the rain began to tap gently against the windows, the rancher decided to ask a little more directly about the object she carried. "I know it's hard," he said gently, "but I think it would help if you told me what it is. Maybe then I can protect it better, and protect you too." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting fear, hesitation, and a hint of relief that he was not angry or forcing her. She took a deep breath as if preparing herself for a difficult confession. "It's something I've carried for a long time," she whispered. "It's not just an object. It's a part of my life, something I can't lose. If it's taken from me, I don't know what would happen." Her hands shook slightly and she pressed it closer to her chest. The rancher nodded slowly, understanding without needing all the details. He could see that her fear was genuine and that whatever she held mattered deeply to her. The rain outside grew heavier and the wind rattled the windows. Inside, the rancher and the woman sat together, the fire crackling softly in the background. The room was filled with a comforting warmth, a contrast to the storm outside. Slowly, she began to tell fragments of her story, places she had been, people she had met, and dangers she had narrowly escaped. Each word was careful, measured, as if she were testing the rancher's reactions. He listened without interruption, offering small nods and quiet encouragement, letting her feel in control of the narrative. As she spoke, the rancher realized that there were gaps in her story, things she avoided mentioning. He understood that the object she carried was at the heart of those gaps, and that it held secrets too personal or too dangerous to share easily. Still, the fact that she had started to speak at all was a sign of trust, and he decided to honor it by giving her space while remaining close enough to offer protection. By late afternoon, the storm began to ease. The sky was still gray, but the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle. The rancher suggested they go outside for a short walk to stretch their legs and enjoy the fresh, clean air. She agreed, carrying the object carefully, but seeming more relaxed than before. The fields glistened with water, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. As they walked together, he pointed out small signs of life, Birds shaking off raindrops, a deer cautiously moving through the trees, and the faint rustle of a fox in the distance. These simple observations seemed to bring a small measure of peace to her, and she even allowed herself a quiet laugh at a playful horse in the distance. As the sun began to set, the rancher guided her back to the house. She had shared more of her story now, though much remained unspoken. The bond between them had grown stronger, based on mutual respect, patience, and the unspoken understanding that the world could be both dangerous and beautiful at the same time. The rancher knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, at least for now. That evening, as they sat by the fire, the woman finally allowed herself to relax completely. The storm had passed, leaving a calm, quiet night. She glanced at the object she had carried so protectively, and then at the rancher, as if weighing whether to reveal more. He offered her a reassuring smile, and for the first time, she felt that perhaps she could trust someone completely. The rancher, too, felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that her story, her fears, and the object she carried had already begun to change him, just as he had begun to change her. The night deepened, and the wind outside whispered gently through the trees. The rancher kept watch by the window, alert to any signs of danger, but also allowing himself a moment of quiet reflection. He knew that the days ahead would be challenging, that there were still mysteries to uncover and dangers to face, but he felt ready. Together, they had taken the first steps toward understanding, trust, and perhaps even something more. And though the object remained mostly a secret, it had already brought them together in ways neither of them could have predicted. As the fire's glow softened and the night grew darker, both the rancher and the woman felt a quiet sense of anticipation. They knew that the story was far from over, and that the true challenges were yet to come. But for now they could rest, sharing the warmth of the fire, the comfort of safety, and the fragile hope that the bond they had begun to form would help them face whatever lay ahead. It was a moment of peace in the eye of the storm, a small but significant victory in the journey that had brought them together, and a promise that the coming days would reveal more about the secrets they both carried. The morning after the storm, the ranch was bathed in a soft, golden light. The grass sparkled with droplets of water, and the air smelled fresh, carrying the scent of earth and flowers. The rancher had risen early, as usual, and was tending to the animals, but his mind kept returning to the woman. He could see how she had begun to relax slightly, yet he knew there was still a heavy burden she carried, a burden tied to the object she held so protectively. He wondered how much longer she could keep her fear hidden and what secrets the object held. There was a tension building in the quiet hours of the ranch, a feeling that something significant was about to unfold. The woman had stayed inside that morning, sitting near the window with the object pressed close to her chest. She watched the sunlight moving across the fields, her mind restless. For the first time, she allowed herself to think about what it would mean to trust someone completely, and the idea was both terrifying and comforting. The rancher noticed her quiet reflection and decided not to disturb her. He understood that her thoughts were important, that they were part of the process of opening up and finding trust. By late morning, the rancher approached her with caution and a gentle smile. "Would you like to go to the orchard?" he asked. "It's quiet there, and you might like the apple trees. They're just beginning to bloom." She hesitated, but then nodded, agreeing to go. The walk to the orchard was peaceful, filled with the sounds of birds and the rustle of leaves. The sun warmed their backs, and the light breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Slowly, she began to relax, allowing herself to enjoy the simple beauty of the ranch. As they walked, the rancher spoke about the orchard, the history of the trees, the care it required, and the joy of seeing fruit grow season after season. The woman listened quietly at first, but then began to ask questions. her curiosity breaking through the fear she usually carried. She wanted to know about the different types of trees, how the fruit ripened, and even how the animals interacted with the orchard. Each question she asked was a small sign of trust, and the rancher felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that he was helping her feel more at ease. In the heart of the orchard, a gentle breeze stirred the branches, and the woman finally spoke more openly. "I've had to hide this for so long," she said softly, glancing down at the object in her hands. "Not everyone would understand. Some people would take it from me if they could. It's more than just something I carry. It's part of who I am." Her voice trembled slightly, and she pressed the object closer. The rancher nodded, understanding her fear without needing to see the object itself. He knew that whatever it was precious beyond measure, and it demanded respect and protection. The rancher tried to reassure her gently. "You don't have to show me if you're not ready," he said. "But know this, I will not let anyone harm you, and I will not let anyone take it from you. Whatever it is safe here, with us." She looked at him, her eyes searching for sincerity, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that someone could truly be trusted. She gave a small nod, the first sign that she might soon share more of her secret, even if just a little. As the day moved on, the rancher and the woman spent more time together in the orchard, walking between the trees, picking apples and talking about simple things. Life on the ranch, the animals, and the beauty of the land. Each conversation brought them closer, breaking down barriers that had been built over years of fear and isolation. The woman began to laugh softly, a sound that had been rare in her life, and the rancher felt a warmth in his heart he had not experienced in a long time. In the afternoon, they returned to the house as clouds gathered again, hinting at another storm. Inside, the rancher suggested they sit by the fire, and she agreed. The room was cozy, filled with the aroma of tea and the soft crackle of the fire. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the wind and rain outside. The rancher noticed that her grip on the object had loosened slightly, a subtle but important sign of growing trust. Finally, as the shadows danced across the walls, the woman spoke more directly about the object she had been protecting. "It's something I inherited," she said, her voice low and careful. "It has been in my family for generations, and it's very important, not just to me, but to everyone who has cared for it before me." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she pressed the object to her chest. The rancher listened intently, understanding that the object carried not only sentimental value, but also a deep responsibility. The rancher realized that the woman's fear was not just about losing the object. It was about losing a connection to her past, to her family, and to a sense of identity she held dear. He knew that he needed to be patient, to allow her to share at her own pace, and to protect not only the object, but the trust she was beginning to place in him. He spoke softly, encouraging her to continue. "You can tell me as much as you're comfortable with," he said. "I'm here to help, not to judge or interfere. Whatever it is, I will do my best to keep it safe." The woman nodded, taking a slow breath. "It's more than just something to hold," she said. "It's a symbol of hope and protection. My family, we've always believed that it carries strength, and that it must be kept safe, no matter what." The rancher could sense the weight of generations in her words, the responsibility she had carried alone, and the fear of losing it that had haunted her every step. He felt a deep respect for her courage, for the way she had protected something so precious for so long. As the evening wore on, the storm outside grew stronger, with wind rattling the windows and rain pounding the roof. Inside, the rancher and the woman continued to talk, sharing stories and experiences that had shaped their lives. The room was filled with warmth, not just from the fire, but from the bond that was growing between them. They were no longer strangers brought together by chance. They were allies, partners in a shared experience of trust, protection, and hope. By nightfall, the storm began to pass, leaving the ranch quiet and still. The woman finally allowed herself to rest, the object still in her hands but held with less tension. The rancher watched over her, feeling a sense of responsibility and determination. He knew that challenges lay ahead, that there were still dangers they might face, and that the full story of the object was still hidden. But he also knew that the foundation of trust and understanding had been laid, and that together they could face whatever came next. The night was calm, with the wind whispering through the trees and the stars beginning to peek through the clearing clouds. The rancher kept watch from the window, alert for any signs of danger, yet also reflecting on the extraordinary events that had unfolded over the past days. The arrival of the woman, the mystery of the object, and the slow but steady building of trust had changed his life in ways he could not have imagined. He realized that this was only the beginning, that the days ahead would reveal more secrets, more challenges, and more opportunities for courage and connection. In the quiet hours before dawn, the woman stirred slightly, adjusting the object in her hands. She looked toward the rancher, her eyes soft with gratitude and trust. For the first time in a long while, she felt that she was not alone, that there was someone who would stand beside her, who would protect what mattered most, and who would help her navigate the dangers and mysteries that still lay ahead. The rancher met her gaze, silently promising that he would not let her down, that he would keep both her and the object safe, no matter what challenges awaited them. As the first light of morning began to creep over the horizon, the rancher and the woman shared a quiet moment of understanding. They had come far in a short time, building trust where there had once been fear, and forging a connection that would carry them through the uncertain days ahead. The object remained a mystery, but its significance was clear. It was a symbol of hope, protection, and resilience. And together they would face whatever came next, guided by trust, courage, and the unspoken promise of safety and understanding that had grown between them in the quiet, stormy nights on the ranch. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. The rancher had risen early as usual, but today there was a sense of urgency he could not shake. Something in the quiet of the morning felt different, almost as if the land itself was holding its breath. He glanced at the woman, who was sitting near the window with the object still in her hands. Her eyes, usually wary and tense, seemed alert, as if she too sensed that today would bring change. They moved through the morning together, tending to small chores and enjoying the peace of the ranch, but neither could fully ignore the feeling that something was coming. The rancher, experienced and calm by nature, felt a subtle unease building. He had faced storms, wild animals, and even occasional thieves over the years, but this was different. This was about something far more personal, something tied to the object the woman had guarded so fiercely. Its significance was still a mystery, but its importance was undeniable. By mid-morning, the woman spoke, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I think the time has come," she said quietly, looking down at the object. "I've hidden it for too long. I need to show you what it really is, so you can help me protect it." The rancher nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had earned her trust, and now it was time to face the truth together. She moved slowly to the center of the room, holding the object with care. Her hands trembled slightly, but there was determination in her eyes. She took a deep breath and finally revealed it. The rancher's eyes widened slightly in surprise, not because of what it was, but because of the care and history it carried. It was a small, intricately carved box, delicate yet sturdy, with patterns etched into its surface that told stories of generations past. The object seemed almost alive, imbued with meaning that went beyond its appearance. This, she said softly, has been in my family for generations. It carries memories, lessons, and protection. Every person who has held it has understood that it must be kept safe no matter what. If it is lost or taken, I cannot even imagine the consequences. Her voice shook, but her grip on the object never wavered. The rancher nodded, recognizing the deep responsibility she carried. He understood that this was more than a family heirloom. It was a symbol of resilience, hope, and connection. The rancher reached out, placing a steady hand near hers, not to touch the object but to offer reassurance. "I understand now," he said gently. "And I promise, as long as I'm here, no one will take it from you. Whatever dangers may come, we will face them together." The woman looked at him, a mix of relief, gratitude, and trust in her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of safety and certainty that she had not experienced for years. As they sat together, planning how to keep the object safe, a sudden noise outside interrupted the calm. The rancher's instincts kicked in immediately. He moved toward the window, scanning the fields and the horizon. At first he saw nothing, but then a shadow moved near the tree line, a figure approaching quickly, intent clear in its stride. He turned to the woman, his expression serious but calm. "Stay here," he said firmly. "Don't move." The figure emerged from the trees, revealing a stranger, someone who had clearly been searching for the object. The rancher felt a surge of protectiveness and resolve. He knew he could not let this person near the woman or the object. He stepped outside, his boots firm on the wet ground, and called out, "Stop! You're not welcome here!" The stranger hesitated but continued forward, his intentions clearly hostile. The rancher's heart raced, but his mind was clear. He had faced many dangers before, but this was different. It was personal. He needed to protect not only the woman but also the object she had trusted him with. He positioned himself between the approaching figure and the house, his stance strong and confident. The wind carried the tension through the air, the trees rustling as if aware of the confrontation unfolding. Inside, the woman watched, holding the object tightly. Fear and hope battled within her. But she knew the rancher would not fail. She had seen his strength, his calm in the face of uncertainty, and his willingness to protect what mattered most. She whispered a quiet prayer, sending strength to him in the only way she could. Her trust had led to this moment, and she felt the gravity of it deeply. The stranger advanced, and the rancher spoke firmly, his voice carrying authority. "I said stop. Turn back now, or face the consequences." The stranger faltered, clearly assessing the rancher's determination. For a moment it seemed as if the confrontation would escalate, but the rancher held his ground, unwavering. The figure finally stopped, realizing that the rancher's resolve was unshakable. Slowly the stranger turned and retreated, disappearing into the trees from which he had come. The rancher watched until the figure vanished completely, then returned to the house. The woman's relief was palpable, and she embraced him briefly, a gesture of gratitude and trust. "Thank you," she whispered. "I knew you wouldn't let anything happen." The rancher smiled gently, feeling a sense of accomplishment and deep respect for her courage. "You were brave too," he said. "You trusted me with something very precious. That takes strength, more than you realize." They sat together by the fire, the storm outside having passed, leaving a calm and peaceful evening. The object rested safely between them, its presence a symbol of trust, resilience, and the bond they had formed. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection, knowing that while dangers may arise in the future, they had proven to themselves that they could face them together. As night fell, the stars began to shine above the ranch, twinkling like tiny beacons of hope. The rancher and the woman sat in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts but connected by shared experience and understanding. The woman finally allowed herself to feel a deep sense of peace. knowing that the object she had guarded for so long was safe, and that she was not alone in the world. The rancher felt a similar serenity, knowing that he had played a part in protecting something precious and in helping someone find trust again. In the following days, life on the ranch returned to its familiar rhythm, but with subtle changes. The woman became more confident, more at ease with the world around her, and more willing to share her thoughts and stories. The rancher noticed the light in her eyes, a spark that had been hidden behind fear and caution, now glowing brightly. Together they tended the animals, walked the fields, and maintained the land, finding comfort in the ordinary tasks of ranch life while cherishing the extraordinary bond they had built. The object remained central to their shared life, a constant reminder of trust, courage, and protection. Each time the woman looked at it, she remembered the fear she had carried, the uncertainty she had faced, and the hope she had found. Each time the rancher saw it, he was reminded of his promise, the responsibility he had accepted, and the connection that had grown between them. It was more than an object. It was a symbol of resilience, a link between past and present, and a source of strength for the future. As the months passed, the rancher and the woman continued to grow closer, their bond strengthened by shared experiences, trust, and the understanding that life was unpredictable but manageable when faced together. They celebrated small victories, comforted each other in moments of fear, and found joy in the quiet beauty of the ranch. The object, once a source of secrecy and fear, became a symbol of safety, love, and shared responsibility, its significance woven into the fabric of their daily lives. And so, the rancher and the woman, brought together by chance and circumstance, built a life founded on trust, courage, and mutual respect. They faced challenges, overcame fears, and protected what was most precious, learning that even in a world full of uncertainty, hope, resilience, and connection could thrive. The object, once hidden and feared, now represented everything they had fought for: safety, trust, and the promise of a future they would face together, side by side, no matter what the days ahead might bring. The ranch was quiet once again as the sun set behind the hills, casting a golden glow over the fields. The wind whispered gently through the trees, carrying with it the sense of peace and fulfillment that had settled over the land. Inside the house, the rancher and the woman sat together, the object safe between them, and for the first time in a long while, both felt completely at home, knowing that they had found not just safety, but also a bond that would endure, no matter what challenges lay ahead.